Hello, I'm Eric Coy, and today I'm here to share 3 tips to help you achieve your new normal. Now, full transparency, I absolutely cannot stand the expression new normal, especially in the context of this coronavirus pandemic. First of all, while it may be new, it is by no means normal. I mean, come on. Human beings are social creatures, and yet we're being asked to socially distance 6 feet or more and to avoid touching, such as hugs or handshakes. That is by no means normal. And secondly, we don't know what the final stable state normal is going to be. I mean, as we've practically shut down our economy and are now just beginning to reopen it in phases, we're going through interim steps of normalcy. Still, since new normal has entered our vocabulary and lexicon, I guess I'm forced to use it. Now, we can't talk about a new normal without talking about an old normal. So let me ask you 3 questions. What does old normal mean to you? What does new normal mean to you? And more importantly, what does new normal mean for you? How you answer these questions will provide a framework for helping you to achieve your new normal, or whatever interim state you're trying to achieve. Let me explain. You see, old normal is your baseline. This is what you're moving from. Think of it as a photograph, a snapshot in time. Now, what does your new normal mean to you? This is your vision. This is where you get to create whatever the new routines are going to be. Think of this as a painting. While you may include elements from the old normal, it is totally new. And finally, what does new normal mean for you? This is the delta, the difference between the baseline and your vision. This is where you have the opportunity to identify all the resources, all the procedures and policies, and all the communication that needs to take place in order to go from baseline to new normal. Let me explain. Up until recently, I worked for a national retail chain that was considered and is considered essential because of the products and services that it sells. Now, being a retail chain, you can guess what the old normal was. Customers would come into the store, customers would be able to physically pick up product, look at it, sometimes cough over it. Sales associates would be working in close proximity to the customers, making suggestions, answering questions, and then the customers would cluster around a register or various registers in the store waiting for checkout. And there was no social distancing. And then the stay-at-home orders came. And overnight, our business model changed. We went from having customers physically coming into the store to having predominant internet sales and customers doing curbside pickup, or in our case, parking lot pickup. So our new normal was having 3 sections in the parking lot designated for different activities. One for pickup, one for customers who are needing consultation before they place an order, for example, on their mobile device, and one for returns and exchanges. Okay, what did that mean for us? Now, we had to let customers know communication, about the three areas, which meant we had to have signage made to identify the three areas. And we had to have signage made in order to identify which parking slots were being used. We also had to create a new process for handling returns in the context of a pandemic. I mean, we didn't know if a product that was coming back had been exposed to the virus. It also meant having to physically communicate to the sales associates that we must maintain that 6-foot social distance, because if a law enforcement officer came by and saw that we weren't maintaining that, they could shut us down. So now management had to come up with new policies and procedures to communicate this and to enforce it. Now, this is just a small example, but you can see by focusing on that delta, that difference, after identifying what was the baseline and what was the vision, you're now starting to get an idea of what are the areas that you need to address in order to achieve that new normal. Research has shown that people adopt and adapt to change easier if they feel like they have some control over the change. And by answering these three questions, what does old normal mean to you? What does new normal mean to you? And what does new normal mean for you? You start defining a framework and identifying the areas over which you have greater control, which will give you a greater possibility of more successfully implementing your new normal. So, what's your next step? If you like this content, then subscribe and follow me. And if you're looking to improve your client relationships with enhanced trust and loyalty, then contact me and let's explore how I might support you in your efforts.